The UK should ideally not have any troops in Ukraine, says Kemi Badenoch. I'm going to read into this more from the Financial Times, you guys. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Reganelite here with an article from the Financial Times with the headline that the UK should ideally not have any troops in Ukraine, says Kemi Badenoch. Tory leader calls for Parliament to be given a vote on any military involvement. Guys, while you're here, make sure you hit the like button and share it across social media so others are notified of this video. I agree that Parliament should be given a vote on any military involvement. I think that is absolutely right. It is right that Parliament should have a say on something as significant as this. Now, of course, we are talking a lot of hyperboles here because we still haven't got, at the time of this recording, there's not a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine. We don't know what the context of such a peace deal is. We know that America and Donald Trump are trying to push for some kind of peace deal. They're trying to get Russia to come to the table to some kind of agreement. We know that Russia are kind of playing about with Donald Trump and making Trump look like an absolute fool. There's obviously talk that some people have claimed that Donald Trump is a Russian asset. That's a lot of questions. I've discussed that as well. But we're talking about hypotheticals here on the basis is that having British troops in some kind of peacekeeping arrangement to protect Ukraine and Russia from each other. That's what this is. And obviously, understandably so, a lot of people, and I can totally understand many people's frustrations of the fact that putting British troops in this situation, that considering that we have British troops, we do have British troops stationed in other parts of the world as we speak. And obviously, our army force is not as great as it used to be. I want to make this very, very clear here that the idea of troops going here is not to declare war. It's not going to war. It's not engaging with Russia. The intention is not to do that. The intention is to be there as serving as peacekeepers. Ideally, personally, if it was up to me, if I could make the decision, I'd rather have United Nations peacekeepers in this situation, not European. Me personally. Now, the US said they're not going to have their troops in this situation. That's what they've said. Trump's very clear about that. I don't know if that was what Joe Biden would consider doing if he was in his situation. The Democrats, we don't know. We just never know in that situation. But this is the situation we're in now. That Trump is tired. He wants to stop support. He wants to turn the taps off when it comes to supplying and supporting Ukraine. And if I'm honest, a lot of people, and I understand this, a lot of people are fed up with all the weapons and military and financial aid that we are giving to Ukraine, even in this situation. People are feeling tired from this. People are feeling tired from this. And I understand that. I understand that position. I understand why people would feel that way because of this. I totally respect that position. I really, really do. Because it is, people will argue that this money could be used for our own economy, used for this and that and the other. And I get that. But let me put it this way. To make any kind of suggestion that Russia could not attack the UK or that Russia could not attack another European country is folly. Okay, as of right now, Russia are not very good economically wise, not very good militarily wise. They're very weak at the moment because of this conflict. This conflict has hurt them, and their isolation that has been put on them by the US and European allies and the rest of the world by their war in Ukraine has deeply harmed them. It's deeply hurt them. It's hurt their country. It's hurt their population, and it has greatly affected them. Russia does want an end to this. Ukraine wants an end to this. Ukraine just wants its territory back. They want their territory back. Russia and Putin, if it was up to him, obviously he'd take all of Ukraine. But he needs to go. He needs to be taken away with a victory. And he wants incentives that he can be able to attack again. He wants those incentives. He does not want Ukraine to be a part of the European Union. He does not want Ukraine to be a part of NATO. And one of the things that the Russian president is trying to do, using Donald Trump, because if this is our intention to believe that he's a Russian asset, is to try and undermine NATO in every way, shape, or form. To put this premises is that under Article 5, obviously, if there's an attack on one nation, there's an attack on all nations, and everyone should respond to it. And Putin wants to discredit this notion in NATO, because if he can discredit that rule, that means he can carte blanche attack the likes of Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, those kind of countries, and get away without any repercussions from them. Because the question is that if he does attack a NATO country, Will the rest of the Western nations respond? Now, there's talks. There've been recent talks recently about Donald Trump pulling out, obviously, of NATO as well. I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but I would not be surprised at all if he was to do that anyway. But on this question, do I personally support UK troops in Ukraine if it means keeping the peace? Yes, I do. Because I would rather our UK troops ensuring the safety and security of European security, that includes us, there, than the conflict potentially coming towards us. Now, people, you can talk all you want about, it's Ukraine's far away from us, it's not our problem and whatnot. No, they are our friends, they are our allies, they are European neighbours, and we should try to help them in this situation because their lands, their homes, their lives have been taken away from them by Russia. And believe me, just because Ukraine, just because of what's happening here, doesn't mean that Russia cannot push, like I said, to other nations. So I have no problem with it. And I get the question that she says ideally here, because obviously, considering the situation over our armed forces right now, and we've talked about this several times, I can understand why people feel about the armed forces and how weak it is as well. But let's read a bit more into what she's saying as well. So, the Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch says that the UK ideally should not be having boots on the ground in Ukraine, and a sign of domestic political consensus on Britain's involvement in Sir Keir Starmer's coalition of the willing is fraying. The opposition party leader called in the House of Commons to be granted a vote on deploying British personnel in Ukraine and warned she would not grant the Prime Minister a blank cheque for UK military participation. Well, I agree. I actually agree with this. I would not want the government to have a blank consensus on military participation either. I think all MPs should have a say on it. I really, really do. After initially saying he was willing to deploy British forces to Ukraine, Starmer on Thursday indicated he was turning towards air and sea support to defend the country after any peace deal, a shift from his previous focus on European boots aground. His comments came after he and Defence Secretary John Healey hosted military planners from the 31-country coalition that is back in Kyiv at the British Armed Forces headquarters in Northwood, Hertfordshire. Starmer said the meeting was designed to pivot from political contempt to military plans, and so that the coalition could react straight away to defend any peace deal that Ukraine secures with Russia. Outlining her key questions for the UK government, Badenoch said on Thursday that Parliament needs to know whether the US would be providing security support and how many British personnel would be deployed and what would happen to those UK troops were attacked by Russia. Would Britain would then be in direct conflict with Moscow, she asked, telling GB News. I think it would be very helpful to know exactly what we're voting for. Let's be very, very clear here. Yeah, again, we are talking lots of hypotheticals here because there's a lot of steps that need to be taken place before we get this far, and it's really I really have to stress that. Okay, but let's just say hypothetically all these things happen, right? And we have British troops on the ground. If Russian troops attacked British troops, that is in turn direct conflict with us because you are attacking our troops. It is literally attacking. It is direct conflict. I would call it direct conflict, which is why Putin doesn't want any kind of troops, any kind of peacekeeping troops on the ground. He doesn't want that. The Conservative leader stressed her caution into rushing into armed intervention. These are lives of young British men and women. We need to look after them. We can't just send them all around the world just because we want to tell a story and make an announcement, she said. That's like, I have my disagreements about Keir Starmer, about a lot of things, but this is just folly. This is not about wanting to tell a story and make an announcement. Okay, this is about the protection and the sovereignty of Ukraine. That's what this is about, okay? The UK Prime Minister technically possesses the executive power to commit personnel to military action without seeking the approval of Parliament. In January last year, Rishi Sunak, the then Prime Minister, authorised airstrikes on Houthi rebels without consulting MPs, with ministers arguing that the action was limited, necessary and proportionate in self-defence. Yeah, this was wrong. I don't like that I understand there are some situations where the government needs to make decisions without the consensus of Parliament. But there is time to make conversation about this. You know, if we get to a point where they're actually at the table and discussing Ukraine and Russia, that is when Parliament needs to be having serious discussions about this. Excuse me. That is the point where there needs to be serious discussions about this. However, senior government figures believe it is likely Starmer would seek political cover for deploying personnel in Ukraine by consulting MPs in advance. I agree. I do agree that that there needs to be consulted in advance. I do think I do agree as well that I think the opposition leader Kemi Badenoch, regardless of what you think about her and the Conservative Party, and we've shared our thoughts many times on this channel, how we feel about them. Yes, I do believe that they should be consulted on this, as with all political parties, on the situation if it does go that far. I do think that they should have a say on this, because this is a very serious matter. We're talking about, as she says, British lives being put in this situation, and I totally understand some people who do not want British troops on that ground. I can totally understand and respect people's wishes why they don't want them on that ground, that they're on this. But if putting British troops on the ground stops Russia from attacking Ukraine, ensures security and stability between the two sides, okay? If British and French troops were deployed, because France have talked about this too, and it ensures peace, okay? And it means that we're not having to send billions and billions of dollars worth of weapons and equipment and aid and support to Ukraine. Is that not what we want? Is that not what we want? Peace and security? Those assurances? Do we not want that? Let me know, honestly, what you think about those thoughts. So do let me know down in the comments below, guys, what you guys think about all this. If we get to this point, and that's all big ifs because they're still hoops, are you in favour of British troops on the ground in Ukraine if it means as peacekeepers in order to avoid conflict between Ukraine and Russia? Let me know your thoughts and more down in the comment section below what you guys think of this. Do you agree or disagree with Kemi Badenoch on ideally that it should not be there? Now, if you found this video informative or helpful in any way to you, please hit that like button, share this across social media, subscribe if you haven't already, and do click the join button down below to join the YouTube membership for as little as 99p as well. And you could also check out the Patreon and Rumble channels as well for exclusive content on those platforms as well. So thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.